Welcome back to Adobe Lightroom, and today we're going to take a look at three different things. One being the crop tool, next being kind of the cloning and retouching brush, and lastly the red eye tool inside of Adobe Lightroom Classic. All right, welcome back to Lightroom Classic, and today we're essentially going to take a look at the crop tool and the cloning tool, though we do have the red eye removal tool. So the first thing we're going to take a look is the crop tool. So we're going to click on this crop tool. And there's a large misconception as to what you are doing here. First of all, we have a little lock, and notice that the lock is unlocked at this point. If we lock it, what it does is lock the aspect ratio. So a camera shot in a native 2x3, so it's locking that aspect ratio. So I can't freeform crop that. If I unlock it, now you'll see I can kind of make this any size I want. So it's letting me change the ratio. And we're going to come in here and take a look at this here. So if you notice, we've got 1:1, 4:5, 8:10, 8.5:11, 5:7, 2:3, and 4:6. This is not, let me specify, not sizing your image to any of those dimensions. It is just changing the ratio of your image. So right now we are in a 2:3. If I go 1:1, if we do this, it's just making the crop square. If we change that to go to 5:7, it's not sizing our image 5:7. It is changing the ratio to 5:7. So this is going to be like 7:5. All right. I'm not going to say, and it could be 10:14. It doesn't matter. It's just the ratio. It does not size your image. And the cool thing is, and we will make this teeny tiny itty bitty, and we're going to go ahead and apply that. I just hit the return on a Mac screen. And so I cropped it, and I can be like, ooh, that doesn't look good. Well, the wonderful thing about working in Lightroom, it's non-destructive. So when I select the crop tool, we go back to the original. It never removed anything. It's just a preview of what you did. Right here, we have the rule of thirds. We use this for composition in photography. We're not going to get in that today. I have a separate video tutorial on that. What we're going to take a look at is the different options that we have. So we have as shot, and that means as shot, the image ratio as shot. So most 35 millimeters are going to be 2:3. Then we have original, which is essentially the same thing. Custom, where you can custom do whatever you want. Specific image ratios right here. Okay, and then below this, notice we have 16:9, and it's telling you in the pixel dimension of what it's for, because these tend to be more for video. So this is 1920 by 1080. And then you can come in here and go enter custom. And so if I wanted to, which would be weird, I could make a 1:14 ratio, not size, and you could see we would get this long, skinny crop, just like. So cropping is just changing the image ratio. It doesn't size. So you would need to change this ratio, and then when you would export, you would actually size your image. All right, so I've reset that and gone back to the beginning here. How does this work? So right now we're in original, and if I come in here and change this, it allows me to form and do whatever I want in original, which doesn't sound like it should, because original should keep that ratio, but it doesn't. If we want to keep this ratio, which is 2:3, you're going to hold the shift key and grab anywhere, and now it won't let you change the ratio. So before, if I didn't hold shift, I can kind of freeform crop, but if I hold shift, it's going to keep the ratio and let me do it. And so if I pull from this side, it's going to change and draw it in from that side. Same thing with the bottom. If I come here, it's going to draw it in, but keep that ratio. I'm just mashing that down. I'm going to hit escape so we get out. Okay, I have reset this image. The next thing I'm going to show you is holding shift and option on a Mac and shift and alt on a PC. If you do that, it's going to crop in from all sides equally. So it's cropping into essentially this center point from all sides. That is shift option for a Mac and shift alt for a PC. So that's a wonderful thing to do. If you go outside, notice the little icon change to these little, I call it the flippy flop arrow. It's just a right angle arrow. If I left click and drag, it lets me rotate my image. All right, so that's how we rotate our image. So we can rotate like that. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set this to 5:7. And so we've got this 5:7 ratio. But right now it's in a horizontal manner. If I want this to be vertical, I'm going to grab this and kind of pull it with, I'm going to grab this with the left click and pull, and you can see it flips it. If I go back this way at an angle, it flips it that way. So I'm either pulling this way or grabbing this and pulling this way. So I'm going this way for vertical. If I come in here and grab that, it flips it to horizontal. So it's like a really easy way to kind of flip that one direction or the other. We can also just change the angle here. So I showed you how to manually kind of go outside and get the flippy flop arrows to change the angle. You could also use this slider right here. Constraint to image means that it won't go outside of your image. So if you hold this, I do this, and I try to pull outside or I try to rotate, notice it keeps my window inside of my image. In Photoshop, you can crop outside of the space. So that being said, I'm going to tell you something very important. I never crop in Lightroom. And the reason is I want to tone my whole image so I have my whole image. I don't want to lose my image. And when I go into Photoshop, I won't crop either. I'll tone or edit my entire image and save it. I only crop when I then need to size it for print or some method of output. And the reason for that is if I need to go back in and get more information that I've cropped out, I've always got the toned original image. But if you take this image and crop it and send it to Photoshop and then you save that out, you're gonna lose the ability to go back in that program. So best practices is to never crop. I don't crop here in the computer. It just doesn't make any sense. I always tone the entire image. This is the last thing that I do. So I'll tone it. I will size my image. So that is crop and getting the image size. So if I made the ratio 5:7, I would then size it to 5:7 and then I would save it out. Because when you do that, you need to sharpen an image, which is actually weird because a lot of times it's called the unsharp mask, which doesn't make any sense. But you need to do that at the very end. It's the very last thing. And if you've ever looked right here, I've always said in the basic panel, um, a lot of times these do some sharpening and there is some sharpening in detail. And I'll tell you not to do it. And the reason is you must size your image to sharpen properly. Because sharpening doesn't do what most people think. Most people think it does some magical thing where it sharpens it. It doesn't. It increases edge contrast, giving the appearance of the higher contrast gives the appearance of sharpening. So we'll get into that when we get into Adobe Photoshop, but my suggestion is not to use any of that stuff right now. So that's the crop tool that we have right there. The next thing is I'm going to hit reset so we can go back, and we have the clone stamp tool. This is another one that I don't really use here, and the reason is because I do it on its own separate layer in Photoshop. But if you're not using Photoshop, I'm going to show you how to use this. Hey, if you're looking for something new to wear, I have a company called T-Lab Designs where I design custom t-shirts and apparel. We make stuff for adults and children. 3 different methods, and they all work a little bit differently, but do the same thing. So right here we have the newest, which is the remove tool. This is using AI. We then have the Band-Aid, which is a spot removal tool, which uses content aware. Content aware means if I want to take this spot out, it looks at the area around it and kind of replaces it with that. And clone stamp is really simple. If you want to take this and replace it over here, it's just a direct stamp. Just think of it as a stamp tool. And down here we have something new that's actually really new. It's called visualize spots. Right now it says tool overlay always. Just leave it on, but you could change it to whatever you wanted. And I'm going to turn this on. It gives you this funky thing. And so right here's what we're looking at. That little circle, let me turn this off. I'll go back in and show you. Right there, that kind of fuzzy gray spot that we see just above on the top right. And we've got a whole bunch of them over here. So there's one right there. These are dust spots on your sensor. Like, they're not the end of the world. This is to just help you see them if you're not used to seeing them. And then you could come in with something like the content aware tool. I'm just using my mouse to make this smaller, and I could just go over those areas. And you could see it saying, hey, I'm taking this area here and replacing it there. This is why I hate this tool, because it shows those little things. It kind of drives me nuts. When we're in this, notice we've got opacity and feather, so we can change the opacity and feather of this tool, and we can try different things. So if we want to go to the remove tool, which is this tool right here, and this is using AI, it can do the exact same thing. It just uses it and does it in a different area. We can add and subtract, and we can control the size. All right, the color right there is just showing you where you did it at. So I can come in here and remove that dot there. If I wanted to remove this whole cloud, I could literally remove the cloud pretty easily. This is using AI. Once I'm done, I can hit remove. It's going to go through a little process because my computer is doing it off-site using AI at Adobe, so it does a better job. It takes a little bit longer when you do this. So you can see it leaves and shows you all the weird areas of where you're done. So to get rid of that, just click on something else and you can see, yeah, all those dots have disappeared. So we'll come back here. The clone stamp works exactly the same way, but you click on it, and if I want to remove this little cloud here, so what it's saying is this area is going to replace this area. It's just stamping it. And I can grab that and move that around to do any area that I want. And I can get a preview of what it's going to look like. All right. And just like anything else, we have the ability to adjust the opacity and the feathers. So the opacity is the percentage of how much of it gets replaced. If I do it at 50%, this is going to replace this, but only at 50%. And sometimes that actually is helpful, especially when doing like facial retouching and stuff. Like you might have a bag under an eye and you don't want to totally remove it. I don't know if we have anybody with bags under their eyes. Well, a little bit. So you see these little lines right in here. It's kind of like a dark area. Well, usually you don't want to come in here and remove that like at 100% because then people, they look kind of like aliens if you do it at 100%. And look, it picked the totally wrong area to do this in. So we're going to come say, hey, no, use the area here because that's more exact. And I don't want to do it at 100% because it would totally remove it and not look realistic. So in that case, we want to do 50%. We're going to go over again. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to use the clone stamp tool. And this time we're going to bring that feather up because we're getting that hard edge because that feather was too strong. And then I'm going to come in here and draw that. I didn't want to go that high up. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo it. I'm going to come here. And we'll see if that looks pretty good. Once again, it's picking the complete wrong area. This is difficult to do because it doesn't work so great in this program. And then we'll click off of it. It should look better. We shouldn't get such a hard edge. You can see, yeah, it did a better hard edge. This is another one of those items where it works, but let me tell you, it's better in Photoshop because you can put it on its own layer. You can turn it on or off and do a whole lot more to it at any time because it's an adjustment layer. And so I would always suggest just use there. You have a whole lot more options as far as cloning. There's a patch tool, there's a remove and replace. There's all kinds of different stuff that you can use inside of Photoshop and it works better. So if you're just working in Lightroom, this is what you have. It does work okay. All right, and the last tool that we have here is the red eye tool. And so I don't really have any images with red eye, so I added red eye so I can show you how to use the tool. But really the trick is, if you understand how to use a flash, you'll never really get it. So that's the reason I don't have them. It's actually an easy thing to get rid of. We're going to go ahead and click the red eye tool. It's going to bring up red eye. We've got red eye and pet eye. And you're simply going to come in here and just kind of draw a circle that's about the same size as that eye. All right, once you've drawn that circle, you can see right here, it's moved and selected. And up here on the right-hand side, we've got the ability to adjust and change the pupil size. So I'm going to do it too small or some of that red will show. We can adjust that, and then we can either darken or lighten that area accordingly to what makes this look better. In this case, we'll just go ahead and leave it there, and then we would do that to that same eye. Once again, If you understand how to use Flash correctly, this isn't something that you should ever run into. Well, if you found this video helpful and could give us a thumbs up, that would be great. Any comments or questions, you can leave those below. Don't forget to subscribe and have an absolutely wonderful day. Hey, if you're looking for something new to wear, I have a company called T-Lab Designs where I design custom t-shirts and apparel. We make stuff for adults and children.